Tyreek Hill became questionable at the end of the week of practice. Deebo Samuel is also questionable, and Keon Coleman is ruled out. Do you see why we wait till the end of the week to go through every matchup to find our must-start and sit wide receivers in fantasy football? This is why we do it. So make sure to go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support, because I'm the only fantasy YouTuber who waits till the weekend to give you must-start and sit videos. Getting into our first matchup here, the Giants at the Panthers this week. This is the Germany game. It's overseas. It'll be at 8:30 in the morning, so make sure your lineup is set on Saturday night. These games are so annoying. With Malik Neighbors, yes, he's still a must-start guy. I did go through earlier in the week about how he's the wide receiver 48 over the last month of fantasy football, but this matchup is just too good. Carolina is only 15th versus wide receivers, so not exactly the worst defense versus wide receivers. I just think that this is a good opportunity for Malik Neighbors to get right in this game. Malik Neighbors is still going to be a must-start to me personally. Then we're looking at Xavier Legette and Wan'Dale Robinson very, very similarly in the same tiers. To me, to be honest with you, the thing with Legette is that he's still just a deep play, like a big play threat who's going to be getting in the end zone. That's still what Xavier Legette is. He's still not a target-heavy guy. There's none of that stuff going on just yet with him. But the Giants' defense is 22nd versus wide receiver position, so the opportunity should theoretically be there for Xavier Legette. I like the matchup. I like the potential, and obviously he's the wide receiver 1 now. Now with Wan'Dale, obviously his targets have actually taken a little bit of a tumble over the past several weeks. To me, again, it goes back to what I said with Malik Neighbors, where the matchup, I just like it too much to sit Wan'Dale Robinson in all circumstances. Obviously, I'm not telling you to go out and play Wan'Dale Robinson over a bunch of guys that we'll go through here soon. What I am saying is that he definitely is a very flexible option, because at any moment, he can get 10 targets a game once again. It'll just happen out of nowhere, and you'll be like, why didn't I play him this week? And then Jalen Coker, obviously. Jalen Coker last week got in the end zone. He was doing fine for fantasy football. Coker is fine. I just think that ultimately there's definitely a gap between Xavier Legette and with Coker as well. He's a low-end flex option to me. Darius Slayton's out in this game, so you can't play him, and I'm not playing David Moore either. The New England Patriots at the Chicago Bears is our next matchup here. There's no must-starts. Listen, the Bears wide receivers, they've been bad. It's been awful to play these Bears wide receivers. They're still flexible, right? Like DJ Moore is always flexible, and Rome's going to be flexible because I actually see the most upside potentially with Rome. The way that him and Caleb have actually been working together, it's been way better than how Caleb has been playing with DJ Moore. DJ Moore looks really unhappy there. They have no chemistry. They have not built any chemistry. It's actually been embarrassing to watch. Now, the one time that DJ Moore did do well this year was against the Panthers. And this matchup against the Patriots, they're 16th versus wide receivers. Potentially a good option to take advantage of. So that's why he's still at the top. But Rome is really not far behind him, guys. I mean, the matchup obviously is the same. And I could definitely see Rome having another better week than DJ Moore has. Like he has several times this year already. Demario Douglas is a low-end flex. This guy, obviously with Drake May at quarterback, it definitely gives them more upside. But this matchup sucks. I mean, Chicago is 2nd versus wide receivers. They have been stout versus the wide receiver position all year long. This is not a new thing that's evolving here. So with Demario Douglas, I would just say there's better opportunities to play him. Same thing with Kayshon Boutte. I'm not playing him. I'm benching him. I think there's better opportunities moving forward for him. And then with Keenan Allen, like I said, I think Rome at this point is just a clear better option than Keenan Allen is. The San Francisco 49ers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. With Deebo Samuel Jr., obviously it all depends on if he plays. He is questionable, which is a massive disappointment coming out of the bye week. Figured he would have been much healthier. This guy is dealing with injury after injury after injury after sickness. Like, this guy can't get right this year. It's a new injury. It's not even the pneumonia thing that's affecting him anymore. It's a new deal, what Deebo Samuel's going through. So if he plays, I want the matchup because Bucs are 27th versus the wide receiver position. And that's exactly why I called Jauan Jennings a must-start play this week. He's off the injury report. He's cleared to go. Jauan Jennings, to me, is a fantastic start against the 27th ranked defense versus wide receivers in fantasy. I'm all over Jauan Jennings in this matchup right here. I think that he's definitely in line for, at the very least, wide receiver 2 type volume in this San Francisco offense, and I like the potential that he hits on a lot of efficient plays. And I like Sterling Shepard the best out of this Bucs group. It's taken a long time for the dust to settle and to figure out who really is the best Bucs option at wide receiver. Sterling Shepard, you have to look at it like this. With Baker Mayfield, it's like 2016 Oklahoma all over again. With Baker Mayfield and with Sterling Shepard, that's Baker's guy that he just trusts the most. Jalen McMillan's a low-end play this week, but understand this, McMillan is just not a wide receiver one. He's obviously questionable heading into this game as well, so you may not even have the option to do this. But if he even goes, he's not my favorite. It's Sterling Shepard. That's getting the targets here. So I much prefer Sterling Shepard, and he's kind of in the same range as Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall's not far behind because, again, the matchup's great. I do think Ricky Pearsall has opportunities, and especially if Debo misses, Ricky is probably a better play than Sterling Shepard is because the 49ers are 12th against wide receivers. Not exactly a strong matchup. The Denver Broncos at the Kansas City Chiefs this week. I don't see a must start in here. Listen, both of these defenses are really good against wide receivers. Denver's 9th versus wide receivers, and Kansas City's 5th. Now, here's the difference between the two. Most of the time, the wide receiver 1 versus Denver is the one who's getting screwed the most because Pat Surtain is the one following that wide receiver 1 around. That's the exact reason why Hopkins was low ranked in my wide receiver rankings this week, and he's also not a must-start guy to me this week. I think he has a struggle game against Pat Surtain because Pat Surtain is tremendous at football. So I think that he struggles this week, but obviously still a better play than the rest. Courtland Sutton is a fine play. He's becoming a better play. But again, this matchup versus Kansas City's defense is not one that I want to take advantage of. So of course, based on volume, based on big plays that we've seen from him this year, he's flexible, but this is a mid to low end option. And Worthy is still just a touchdown or bust guy. He had opportunities last week. That's what I will say. He had opportunities to get it done, and it didn't happen. He had 2 feet out of bounds, both opportunities. But they both would have been pretty big plays. So Worthy, based on opportunities, because they're all big plays, still a dart throw to play, not a must bench, but definitely not a great play because his floor is so freaking low. And I'm not playing either McCole Hardman or Troy Franklin in this matchup. The Buffalo Bills at the Indianapolis Colts this week. Josh Downs is must start this week. Listen, I think a lot of people overcorrect maybe when they watched Josh Downs last week. Josh Downs was fine, but it wasn't obviously what we had seen with Joe Flacco over the weeks. So a lot of people are like, okay, is this starting to even out? Like, are we starting to see a Wandale type of player? Josh Downs is going to be fine. Buffalo is 6th versus wide receivers, but this is all they've got. I mean, there's no Michael Pittman this week. He's been ruled out. And, who else are you going to throw to? Alec Pierce, Adonai Mitchell? Both those guys are big play threats. Josh Downs the only possession receiver in this offense without Michael Pittman. So Flacco's got no choice. Like, he's gonna pepper Josh Downs with targets. I think Josh Downs has a much better game this week. But then you've got our flexible guys. Cooper is the best one. Because Keon is out, Keon Coleman is out of this game, right? Khalil Shakir, I think, is a good flex option as well. He's still at number 2 in these flex options to me, because I think Cooper is going to be in line for big plays. It's easy to forget. Cooper's first game with the Buffalo Bills this year, it was actually really good. The reality is when you join a new team, there's going to be some bumps, and then last week he didn't even get to play. So a lot of people have forgotten about Amari Cooper at this point. I think Amari Cooper, if he does end up playing, ends up having a bounce back week. And what I read is that Cooper is trending in the right direction to play this week. And then Khalil Shakir, like I said, I think he's a fine play as well because he's going to get his targets. I just prefer Amari Cooper if he goes, but obviously Khalil is the only one there, high-end flex option. Pierce is definitely in that Xavier Worthy range for me. / Courtland Sutton, where it's like mid to low-end flex guy, but definitely could hit on a big play. And especially with Pittman out, maybe they do try to force feed him a few more targets, but ultimately he's just not that great of a wide receiver. The Pittsburgh Steelers at the Washington Commanders this week. Terry McLaurin is always a must-start guy. I mean, this guy has been awesome. Called him a league winner before the year, and he has been a freaking league-winning guy. This was a mid-round pick, and he's producing for you as a top 5 wide receiver would. Terry McLaurin doesn't go on your bench, even with Pittsburgh being 8th versus wide receivers. Him and Jaden Daniels, it's just been too freaking good. I'm not putting Terry McLaurin on my bench under any circumstance. With this wide receiver amount of injuries we have to this position, no chance he's going to my bench. Pickens is a high-end flex. At this point, you have to acknowledge this guy looks like he could become finally consistent in fantasy with Russell Wilson. It's a great thing to see. I'm happy to see it as a Steelers fan. I can't commit to him being a must start yet because he's producing like Terry. Like, it's a lot of like 5 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. And the matchup's not bad. Washington 17th versus wide receivers. ultimately, I can't trust Russ yet to put him inside of must-start. Maybe if Pickens has another great week, then we'll be talking about him as a must-start guy. I'm just not there quite yet, and then every other wide receiver is irrelevant. The one thing these two teams have in common is they very rarely support two good wide receivers in a fantasy football week. The Minnesota Vikings at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Justin Jefferson, obvious must-start. There's no reason to discuss. Brian Thomas Jr. is still the preferred option for me in this flex area because with Jordan Addison, obviously the matchup's great. Jacksonville is 30th versus wide receivers, but his target variance is so wide. Every single week, he might get 9 targets or he might get 3. You know what I'm saying? So it's like there's no consistency there. And most of the times, actually, if there is consistency, it's consistently low targets. So with Addison, he's definitely playable. The matchup is awesome. He's got the big play upside. But what are the chances they get up on the Jags in this game and they just end up running the ball? It's pretty decent, I think. Now with the Jags here, Brian Thomas Jr. is already questionable, right? Gabe Davis is questionable too. You don't play Gabe Davis, don't worry about it. Trevor Lawrence is out. So Mac Jones coming in to play quarterback. What's the drop-off? That's the first time I've asked this question. Is the drop-off significant? I get it. Mac Jones was horrible last year for the Patriots. Lawrence has been bad. I mean, that's just a fact. Like, he's been a bad player. What are the chances he catches this team by surprise? I'm not saying that Mac is going to be a good play this week in fantasy. I'm just saying, like, when it comes to Brian Thomas Jr., what is the drop-off? Really? I'm taking him over Jordan Addison this week. I don't think it's that significant, to be completely honest with you guys. Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints this week. Drake London, must start. If he plays, he's absolutely must start. He's questionable. I read that he's trending in the right direction and he's likely to play. You play Drake London without question. They have no more Marshawn Lattimore. That team is failing. You just play Drake London. And you play Darnell Mooney too. With or without Drake London, Darnell Mooney has been really good the past 2 weeks. And the matchup is pretty awesome in this game. So I just think this matchup is ultimately too good to not take advantage of here. Mason Tipton. Who knows this name? Right? Like, be honest with me. Be honest with yourselves. Be honest with everybody in the chat right now. Who knows who Mason Tipton is? Well, you're about to know who he is. Or maybe not, because every Saints wide receiver is out. All of them. Olave's out, obviously. Cedric Wilson Jr. is out. And Bub Means is on the IR. Like, they have nothing. It's either him or Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and I'm not including him. This is a disaster team, guys. They are a disgrace. And Derek Carr is just not that good to support a bad wide receiver. So Mason Tipton, just maybe based on target opportunities, is a low-end flex. But that's it. Like, I'm not playing anybody else in this game. And the Saints wide receivers, I would try really, really hard to stay away from Mason Tipton this week. The Tennessee Titans at the Los Angeles Chargers. No must-starts in this game either. I can't realistically tell you that either of these Chargers wide receivers are a must-start. Tennessee is first versus wide receivers. For weeks and weeks, I've been dogging the Titans for having this high of a ranking versus wide receivers, but it just is working. Like, it's working for them. So with Ladd McConkey, he's still my favorite because the Chargers are the much better offense in this matchup, and Herbert is the much better quarterback in this matchup. Ladd's my favorite. With Calvin Ridley here, you know the funny thing is, if it was Mason Rudolph, Calvin Ridley would be possibly, he wouldn't be must start. He'd be above Ladd, though. He would be above Ladd this week. Los Angeles is fourth versus wide receivers, so this matchup already sucks. Will Levis is a joke. This guy, I realized talking about him yesterday in the defense rankings, this guy's a clown show. Like, he is a legitimate joke artist. I mean, this guy is a total embarrassment. Like, his knees are probably just shaking every single time he has to go out into the football field because he knows, like, his innate instinct is just to gift wrap a ball to the other team. Like, it's a joke. It's a total joke. So Calvin Ridley, this is going to be much worse for him because Rudolph at least can deliver the ball. Levis hasn't been able to do that. So with Ridley, yes, he's flexible because he's going to get peppered with targets, but I'd much rather prefer Mason Rudolph for Calvin Ridley. And then Quentin Johnston, I'm definitely watching him right now. Obviously, he had a big, massive week last week. Big waiver wire pickup this week. He's still a big play threat. And that's something I want to see evolve a little bit more, is that maybe he can go from like getting 5 or 6 targets a game to getting like 8 or 9 targets a game. If he goes to that then he's going to start to compete with Ladd in really serious flex contention. As of right now, a mid-end flex option for me, and I'm not playing Joshua Palmer. You can't convince me after one game this guy's going to be good, and Tyler Boyd is not going to be in my lineup either. The New York Jets at the Arizona Cardinals this week. You start Garrett Wilson for sure. Arizona's 19th versus wide receivers. Garrett Wilson has clearly separated at this point to be the number one wide receiver in fantasy for the New York Jets. I still believe Davante Adams is Aaron Rodgers' preferred target. I do believe that. But when it comes to the big plays, Davante Adams has not anything on Garrett Wilson. Davante's going to be flexible, a high-end flex, because he's going to get targets. He's always going to get targets, and he's always going to be reliable for Aaron Rodgers. But whether or not he hits on a touchdown like he did in Week 9, that remains to be seen. Rodgers, I don't expect him to play as well versus the Cardinals this week. I just don't. And Marvin Harrison Jr., this guy has been the most frustrating player in fantasy to me this year. I love him. Love the prospect. I call him one of the best prospects I've seen since Jamar Chase. He's been a massive disappointment this year, all things considered. He's actually been a massive disappointment. Like, this guy should be doing much better. He's the clear wide receiver one, which is what ultimately keeps him as a flex option in this game. But to me, Davante Adams is the better flex. The Jets are the number 7 defense versus wide receivers in fantasy. This is not a good matchup here for Marvin Harrison Jr. And I'm not playing either the other Arizona wide receivers because the matchup is bad, and their wide receivers, I don't trust any of them outside of Marvin to potentially get me a big play. The Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys this week. A.J. Brown, fire him up. CeeDee Lamb was cleared to play. You play him. What's the upside, right? What's the upside? Upside always comes through targets right now. Without Dak, it's all about, does he get 15 targets in this game? I think it's probable that he does. They're going to be trailing in this game. They're going to need to use CeeDee Lamb. So he goes into your lineup still. That's the rationale for it. Devonta Smith, horrible defense. You take on the matchup opportunity here. And just the fact that they're not going to be able to stop this Eagles offense here. You're playing both Philly wide receivers, and you can play Tolbert if you want to torture yourself. Like, Tolbert, I don't know what his upside realistically is with Cooper Rush on a week-to-week basis. I have no idea. So if you want to take the shot, like, there's worse you could do for sure, but it's not my preferred thing to do when you've got other guys like Xavier Legette options, right? It's just not my personal favorite thing to do, but he definitely is flexible in this matchup. The Detroit Lions at the Houston Texans this week. Amon-Ra St. Brown, fire him up. The guy's been red hot. He's obviously clicking with this offense here. Houston's 29th versus wide receivers. You take advantage of the matchup, and Amon-Ra already never goes on your bench. Tank Dell, called him a must start this week. Nico Collins is unlikely to play. By every account I've seen, and I've seen so freaking many competing stories from idiots online talking about Nico Collins. Yes, he might play. Well, he returned to practice. He got designated off the IR. Well, he hasn't practiced all week, so he's probably unlikely to play. I've seen it all, and it's driving me nuts. If Nico plays, obviously, put the guy in your freaking lineup. But I'm telling you this, Tank Dell does have a good opportunity here. 23rd versus wide receivers. That's what Detroit is this year. They're very beatable through the air. And Tank Dell without Stephon Diggs and Nico last week, 18 fantasy point game in a full PPR format. The opportunity's there. So if Nico is not there, Tank is must start for sure. Jameson Williams, returning from the suspension, great matchup opportunity, definitely a flexible play. Better flex option than somebody like an Xavier Worthy. That's the way I think of him. He's similar to a Worthy, where it's like the big play threat, but I think it's a better shot to hit on the big play threat with Williams than it is with Worthy. But understand, he's not getting 10 targets in this game. It's a big play option here. Either he booms and he hits it, or he busts and he doesn't hit it. I'll tell you one thing that will hit, though. CJ Stroud. His projection on Underdog this week, 0.5 total yards. That's free money if you're a new customer right there. And if you haven't gotten in on Underdog yet, go down in the comments, grab the link that's there. Use code FN to sign up for Underdog. When you hit the higher on the sweat-free pick with CJ Stroud this week, they'll match your first deposit 50% up to $1,000 in bonus cash. And going to our Monday night matchup, the Miami Dolphins at the Los Angeles Rams. Our Rams wide receivers are clear must-starts. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, they're both lethal with Matt Stafford. Miami is third versus the wide receiver position, though. I will say that is definitely a matchup that frightens me a little bit, but ultimately with the Rams here, like, their offense just runs too well when all of those wide receivers are there. They run too well. So I do think that ultimately it's not going to matter that much. So I'm going to play both of them. Tyreek Hill, even if he wasn't questionable in this game, he's a high-end flex. Tyreek Hill left practice, didn't practice on Friday because of an injury. This has been the lost season for Tyreek Hill. Tyreek was not bad last week, and he wasn't bad the prior week with Tua, but his upside just does not appear to be there at the level we're used to. So yes, definitely the best option in Miami, but a high-end flex option is all he is. He's not a must-start. Jalen Waddle, depending on if Tyreek goes, definitely could find himself close to must-start territory, but if Tyreek's there, all we've seen from Waddle has been a massive disappointment. Fine flex, nothing more. Demarcus Robinson, we'll see if he plays. He's questionable, but he's just basically a touchdown threat at this point, so obviously still playable as well. So let me know how your lineup looks this week, and if you want to see where all these wide receivers ended up in my top 30 rankings this week, click on this video right here.